My 5-year-old dialed a random number crying, "Mommy collapsed." She had no idea she'd just called her billionaire father who never knew she existed. The phone rang at 3:14 a.m., not the gentle buzz of a text or the familiar chime of an alarm, but the harsh, demanding trill of an actual phone call. Julian Crestwood rolled over in his king-sized bed, squinting at the unknown number glowing on his screen. His first instinct was to decline. Who calls at this hour? Probably a wrong number, maybe a drunk dial, or worse, a scam about his car's extended warranty. But before you hear what happened when Julian answered that call, let me thank you for helping us reach 800 subscribers. If you want to know why this random call would completely shatter Julian's carefully constructed life, make sure you're subscribed, because the twist at the end will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about family secrets. The number had a local area code, 512, Austin, Texas. Julian lived in Seattle now, for the past 7 years. He'd left Texas behind, along with everything else from that chapter of his life. His thumb hovered over the decline button for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 3 seconds. Then, against every logical thought screaming in his head, against his usual practice of never answering unknown numbers, he swiped to accept. "Hello?" His voice came out rough, thick with sleep and confusion. For a moment, just breathing. Quick, shallow breaths that made Julian sit up straighter, suddenly more alert. The quality of the silence told him this wasn't a robocall or a butt dial. Someone was there, someone trying to find the courage to speak. Then a small voice, barely above a whisper. Is this Julian? A child. It was a child calling him at 3 in the morning from Austin, Texas. Julian's mind raced through possibilities. The wrong number seemed most likely, yet the child had said his name. A prank call, maybe. Someone's kid got hold of their parents' phone? But something in that voice, something in the tremor and uncertainty, made his chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't quite name. Yes, this is Julian. Who is this? Are you okay? My name is Mila. A pause, and Julian could hear her gathering courage. Then words tumbled out in a rush, like she'd rehearsed them but was terrified she'd forget. My mom said if something bad happened, I should call this number. She made me memorize it. She said to call you, and you would help. She said you would come. Julian's feet hit the cold hardwood floor. He was fully awake now, adrenaline replacing confusion, his mind shifting into the crisis management mode that had made him so successful in his career. A scared child, alone, reaching out to a stranger, to him, because her mother had told her to. Nothing about this made sense, but the urgency was undeniable. Your mom? Who's your mom, Mila? What's her name? Another pause. In the background, Julian could hear something. Was that traffic? Or maybe just the ambient noise of a city at night filtering through a window. When Mila spoke again, her voice was even smaller, frightened in a way that made Julian's protective instincts flare despite not knowing this child at all, despite having no context for why she was calling. Nia Cole. The name hit Julian like a physical blow. He actually gasped, his free hand gripping the edge of his nightstand until his knuckles went white. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Nia Cole. He hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in 5 years. Hadn't allowed himself to even think about it in 3. He'd buried it so deep, covered it with layers of work and distance and deliberate forgetting. Yet here it was, delivered by a scared child in the middle of the night, detonating every carefully built wall he'd constructed around that part of his past. Nia, is your mother? The words came out strangled, barely recognizable as his own voice. Yes. Do you know her? She said you would know her. She said you knew her a long time ago. Do you know her? Julian almost laughed, but it would have come out bitter, maybe even cruel, and this child didn't deserve that. Yes, he knew Nia Cole. Knew the way she took her coffee. 1 sugar, no cream, always in the blue mug if there was a choice. Knew she was afraid of thunderstorms but would never admit it. Would stand at the window during the worst of them, pretending to be fascinated rather than frightened. Knew she had a small scar on her left shoulder from falling off her bike when she was 7, shaped like a crescent moon. Knew the way she looked at him that last night, eyes full of tears and determination as she told him to leave, to never contact her again, to forget they'd ever existed together. Where is your mom now, Mila? Julian forced his voice to stay calm, steady, even as his heart hammered against his ribs. He was already moving toward his closet, pulling out clothes with one hand. I don't know. The tears were evident now, thick in her voice, and Julian felt his throat constrict. She went out last night. She said she had to meet someone, but she'd be back before I woke up. She's never not here when I wake up. Never. And there's... Mila's voice broke, and Julian heard her take a shaky breath. There's something wrong. The apartment doesn't feel right. Julian was already pulling on jeans, phone pressed between his ear and shoulder, his movements automatic while his mind operated on 2 levels. One part focused entirely on keeping this scared little girl calm and safe. The other racing through implications, possibilities, the horrible weight of what this call might mean. Nia had a child. Nia had a child who knew Julian's name, who had his phone number memorized for emergencies. Mila, listen to me carefully. This is very important. Are you somewhere safe right now? Are all the doors locked? Yes, I'm in my room. I locked it like Mom taught me. She made me practice locking it fast. Good. Nia had taught her well. Of course she had. Even back then, even 7 years ago before this child existed, Nia had been cautious, strategic, always thinking 3 steps ahead. It's what had made her so good at navigating complicated situations, and ultimately what had made their ending so absolute. When Nia made a decision, she followed through completely. That's very good, Mila. You did exactly right. Now, I need you to tell me your address. Can you do that for me? There was rustling, like she was moving around, and Julian could hear the distinctive sound of paper being handled. Mom wrote it down for me, in case of emergency. It's in my special folder. It says 4782 Riverside Drive, apartment 23, B, Austin, Texas, 78704. Julian's hand froze in the middle of pulling on his shirt. Austin. She'd stayed in Austin. All this time, while he'd run to Seattle, built a new life, a new identity almost, deliberately choosing the farthest major city he could, while still staying in a comparable industry. She'd stayed right there. The same city, probably the same neighborhood, maybe even close to their old apartment, the one where they'd planned a future that never came, where they'd talked about hypothetical children and laughed at how far away that seemed. Mila, I'm going to come help you, okay, but it's going to take me a few hours because I live far away. I need to catch a plane from Seattle to Austin. Do you know where Seattle is? It's in Washington State. We learned the states. It's really far. You're right, it is far. But I promise, I'm coming. Now, while I'm traveling, I need you to stay in your room with the door locked. Do you have water in there? Any food? I have a juice box in my backpack from yesterday, and there's crackers in my drawer. Mom always keeps emergency snacks. Of course she did. Julian felt a sharp pain in his chest, pride and sorrow mixed together. Nia, preparing her daughter for emergencies, teaching her to be self-sufficient and safe. Nia, raising a child alone while he'd been in Seattle pretending the past didn't exist. Perfect. Those snacks are exactly why your mom put them there. Now, Mila, this is very important. Has anyone else tried to contact you tonight? Has anyone knocked on your door or called you? No. But I thought I heard footsteps earlier, in the hallway outside. They stopped right by our door for a long time. I could see the shadow under the door, someone standing there. But then they went away. Julian's blood chilled. He grabbed his emergency go-bag from the closet, the one he'd maintained out of habit from his old life in Austin. The life he'd shared with Nia when things were complicated and sometimes dangerous. Old habits die hard, and some lessons learned were worth keeping even when you tried to leave everything else behind. If you hear those footsteps again, I want you to hide in your closet. Okay? Get in there and stay very, very quiet. Can you do that for me? Yes. Mom and I practiced hiding sometimes. She called it a game, but I knew it wasn't really a game. Games are supposed to be fun. That one made her sad even when she was smiling. Of course, even after everything, even after she'd pushed him away completely and rebuilt her life, Nia had been preparing for the possibility that the past might catch up. And now it had, in ways she'd apparently anticipated enough to give her daughter Julian's number, to make her memorize it, to designate him as the emergency contact after 5 years of absolute silence. Mila, I need to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. It's okay if you don't know. How old are you? 5. I'll be 6 in October. Julian sat down heavily on the edge of his bed, the room spinning slightly around him. 5 years old. He'd left Austin 5.5 years ago, left in the middle of the night after Nia had begged him to go, after she'd ended everything between them, with words that still echoed in his dreams. The timeline was possible, more than possible. The math was inescapable. My birthday is October 15th, Mila continued, unprompted, her voice gaining a little strength as she talked about something concrete and normal. Mom says I was her best early surprise. She says I came when she needed me most, even though she didn't know she needed me. October 15th. Julian knew that date without having to calculate, knew it instantly because it was exactly 9 months after January 15th. The last night. He'd seen Nia, the night she'd ended everything between them with words. That had seemed cruel at the time, but now felt desperately protective. You need to leave. Tonight. Don't ask questions, don't look back, and whatever you do, don't try to contact me. If you ever loved me, you'll do this one thing I'm asking. Just go and don't come back. He'd argued, pleaded, demanded answers. But Nia had been resolute in a way he'd never seen before, desperate even, and there had been something in her eyes that looked like terror barely controlled. And because he had loved her, God, how he'd loved her, he'd done as she asked. Packed his things, taken the job offer in Seattle he'd been considering, and disappeared from her life. He'd assumed she'd gotten back involved with her old crowd, the dangerous people she'd sworn she'd left behind. He'd assumed she'd chosen that life over him, that he'd been collateral damage in whatever she'd gotten herself into. But now a 5-year-old girl was on the phone, scared and alone, with Nia's determination in her voice, and the timeline suggested impossible, terrible, wonderful things. Mila, he said, his voice carefully controlled, despite the emotions churning through him. I'm on my way. I promise you, I'm coming as fast as I can, and we're going to find your mom together. Everything is going to be okay. Do you believe me? You promise? Such a small voice, carrying such enormous trust, trusting a stranger because her mother had told her to, believing in promises from someone she'd never met. I promise. Cross my heart. Now, I need to hang up so I can book a flight and start driving to the airport, okay? But I'm going to call you right back in just a few minutes from my car, and we can stay on the phone together while I drive. Does that sound good? Okay. Julian? Yes, sweetheart. Mom said you were brave. She said you were the bravest person she ever knew. She said if I ever needed help and she couldn't be there, you would come. She promised me you would come. The words nearly broke him. After everything, after the way things ended, after 5 years of silence so complete. It was like they'd never existed to each other. Nia had told her daughter about him, had kept his number active somehow, had taught it to Mila, had promised this child that Julian would answer if called. What else had she told her? And more importantly, what hadn't she told her? Or him? Your mom is pretty smart, Julian managed, his throat tight. And she's right. I'm coming, Mila. I'm coming right now. Stay safe, stay in your room, and I'll call you back in 3 minutes. Count to 60 3 times, okay? I can do that. I'm good at counting. He ended the call and stood there for a moment in his expensive, empty apartment, looking at his reflection in the darkened windows. 35 years old, successful by every external measure, and completely hollow. He'd built this life methodically after leaving Austin, each promotion a step further. From who he'd been, each achievement a brick in the wall between past and present. He'd become indispensable to his company, the man they called when deals went sideways, when negotiations needed precision and cold calculation. Being needed professionally had replaced being wanted personally, and most days he'd convinced himself it was enough. One phone call had shattered that illusion completely. Julian grabbed his laptop, pulling up flights even as he headed for the door. There was a 5:45 a.m. flight. He could make it if he left immediately. He'd be in Austin by 11 a.m. local time, maybe earlier if he got lucky with connections. Too long. Far too long for a scared 5-year-old to wait, but it was the best he could do. As he locked his apartment and headed for the elevator, one thought kept circling. Back, insistent and terrifying, and somehow right, Nia had kept his number, had taught it to her daughter, had designated him as the person to call when everything fell apart. After 5 years of silence, after pushing him completely out of her life, after building whatever existence she'd created in Austin, she'd still trusted that he would come if called. And he would. Whatever had happened 5 years ago, whatever secrets Nia had been keeping, whatever danger she was in now, none of it mattered compared to the sound of that frightened little girl's voice saying his name like a lifeline. He was going back to Austin, back to the past he'd tried to bury, back to face whatever had finally caught up with Nia Cole. In his car, he called Mila back as promised. "Hey, I'm here. Are you okay?" "I'm okay. I'm counting like you said." "Good. Keep your door locked. I'm going to stay on the phone with you until you feel safe enough to try to sleep a little, okay? And then I want you to call me the second you wake up. I'll be on the plane by then, but I'll answer. I'll always answer when you call. Promise?" "I promise." The question was, would he be on time? The call had shattered more than just Julian's sleep. It had cracked open two carefully separated worlds that had been running parallel for 5 years, never meant to intersect again. 12 hours earlier, Julian Crestwood had stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, watching Seattle's evening lights flicker to life 32 stories below. His reflection stared back, sharp suit, perfectly styled dark hair with distinguished grey. At the temples, the kind of presence that suggested both authority and approachability. At 35, he was the youngest senior vice president in Apex Financial's history, a fact mentioned. In every introduction, every meeting, every profile piece written about the company's meteoric rise, his assistant knocked, 2 sharp raps, always 2. "Mr. Crestwood, the Tokyo call has been moved to 9 p.m. your time, and your dinner reservation at Canlis has been confirmed for 7:30. "Cancel the dinner," Julian said without turning from the window. "I'll eat here." "Sir, that's the 4th cancellation this month. Miss Hartford specifically requested—" "Rebecca will understand." She wouldn't, actually. Rebecca Hartford, daughter of Senator Hartford, beautiful and connected and perfect on paper, would not understand. This would likely be their last cancellation before she ended things, and Julian found he couldn't summon the energy to care. His office was immaculate, glass and chrome and leather, everything in its place. The only personal touch was a single framed photo on his desk, facing away from visitors. Not of Rebecca, not of family. It was a landscape, Austin's skyline at sunset, taken from Mount Bonnell. Anyone asking about it got a vague response about appreciating good photography. No one needed to know it was taken on a specific evening, with a specific person laughing beside him as the shutter clicked, back when he'd believed in futures that included more than quarterly earnings reports. The Tokyo call ran until midnight. Afterward, Julian sat alone in his office, city lights stretching endlessly beyond the glass. His phone buzzed, Rebecca texting her disappointment in carefully crafted sentences that managed to be both hurt and threatening. He deleted it without responding. This was his life now. 12-hour days that bled into 16. Deals worth millions that felt hollow even as they closed. A girlfriend chosen for appearances rather than affection. An apartment that cost more per month than most people made in a year. Furnished by a decorator who'd never asked what he actually liked. Everything is perfectly orchestrated, controlled, empty. He'd built this life methodically after leaving Austin, each promotion a step further from who he'd been. each success a brick in the wall between past and present. He'd become indispensable to Apex, the man they called when deals went sideways, when negotiations needed a surgeon's precision. Being needed professionally had replaced being wanted personally, and most days he convinced himself it was enough. The drive home was silent, no music, no podcasts, just the hum of his Tesla through empty streets. The parking garage of his building echoed with his footsteps. The elevator rose soundlessly to the penthouse. His apartment greeted him with automated lights and perfect climate control, everything responding to his presence while emphasizing his aloneness. He poured himself a scotch, Macallan 18 because that's what successful men drank, and stood at another wall of windows, looking out at a city where he knew everyone was important and no one who mattered. Somewhere, his phone showed 3 missed calls from his mother in Florida, asking when he'd visit, if he was seeing anyone special, if he was happy. He'd call her back tomorrow with the same pleasant lies he always told. This was Julian Crestwood's world at 2 a.m., successful, solitary, sustainable. A life built on the ruins of something real, something he'd convinced himself was better forgotten. Until a phone rang at 3:14, and a small voice said a name he'd trained himself not to think. And everything he'd built revealed itself as exactly what it was, an elaborate structure built on emptiness. 800 miles away, 18 hours before she would disappear, Nia Cole was practicing addition problems at the kitchen counter while scrambling eggs. Her daughter Mila sat at their small dining table, tongue poking out in concentration as she colored, inside the lines of a unicorn drawing, occasionally calling out math problems for her mother to solve. "Mama, what's 47 plus 38? 85, Nia said without hesitation, sliding the eggs onto a plate decorated with dancing bears. Mila's favorite from the thrift store last month. "That's right. You're getting faster. I have a good teacher," Nia said, smiling at her daughter's pride. Their apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, kitchen flowing into the living room, without much distinction between the spaces. But every inch radiated warmth that had nothing to do with the temperature and everything to do with how it was filled. Mila's artwork covered the refrigerator in layers, new pieces taped over old ones until the door was a collage of rainbows and stick figures and elaborate princess castles. Mismatched furniture created from garage sale finds had been transformed with colorful throws and cushions. Books everywhere, stacked on shelves, piled on tables, tucked into corners, spilling out of the basket by the couch. The public library was their second home, Mila already reading at a first-grade level despite being only 5. Nia watched her daughter eat, memorizing the moment like she did every morning. The way Mila hummed while chewing, the careful way she cut her toast into squares. Before eating it, the milk mustache she always got and never noticed. Have you ever kept a truth because you were afraid of becoming someone's burden? Drop a comment if you've been there. Because that's what Nia had done, kept the biggest truth of her life locked away, convinced she was. Protecting everyone involved, carrying the weight alone because it seemed safer than sharing it. "Mama, you're not eating," Mila observed, sharp as always, missing nothing. "Just not hungry yet, baby. Finish up. We need to leave for school in 10 minutes. Truth was, Nia hadn't been hungry for weeks. The fatigue she'd been attributing to single motherhood and double shifts at the hospital had deepened into something harder to ignore. The dizzy spells were becoming more frequent. Yesterday, she'd gripped the nurse's station until her vision cleared, laughing it off when concerned colleagues asked if she was okay. She was always okay. She had to be. There was no alternative when you were the only parent, the only income, the only everything. The morning routine was precise, honed over 5 years into smooth efficiency. Brush teeth, braid Mila's hair with whatever colored ribbons matched her outfit, pack backpack, double-check homework folder. Nia's own preparation was minimal. Scrubs, ponytail, chapstick. She'd stopped trying to hide the dark circles under her eyes. Concealer was an expense that could go toward Mila's college fund instead. Every dollar had a destination, every choice weighted against future possibilities. The drive to school was their special time, 15 minutes that belonged only to them. They sang along to the radio, played I Spy with increasing complexity, as Mila's vocabulary expanded, talked about everything and nothing. Mila was going through a space phase, peppering Nia with questions about black holes and whether aliens liked peanut butter sandwiches and how far away the edge of the universe was. "Mama, if aliens came to Earth, would you let them stay in our apartment?" "Depends. Do they pick up after themselves and pay rent on time?" Mila giggled, the sound that made every sacrifice worth it, every double shift, every skipped meal. Every night, Nia fell asleep over textbooks as she slowly worked toward her nursing degree. She was so close now, one semester away from better opportunities, better pay, a better life for Mila. Just one more semester of balancing work and school and motherhood without dropping any of the balls she was juggling. At school drop-off, Mila hugged her tight, whispered, "Love you" to the moon and back. Their daily ritual since she was 2, and first learned the phrase from a library book. Nia watched her skip toward the entrance, backpack bouncing before driving to Austin General for her 12-hour shift in the emergency room. The day blurred, traumas and treatments, 4S and intubations, the organized chaos that was typical for a Tuesday. She was good at her job, great even. The attending physicians requested her specifically, trusted her instincts, and relied on her to handle the difficult cases. Dr. Rodriguez pulled her aside during a brief lull around 3 p.m. "Nia, you look exhausted. When's the last time you took a real break?" "I'm fine, doctor. I just need more coffee." He frowned but didn't push. They were short-staffed as always. They couldn't afford to lose her. She couldn't afford to lose the hours. The math was simple and unforgiving. No hours meant no paycheck. No paycheck meant no rent. No rent meant no stable home for Mila. So Nia stayed on her feet, ignored the fatigue, and kept moving. By 7 p.m., the dizziness returned with a vengeance. Nia locked herself in a supply closet until the world stopped spinning, gripping the metal shelving until her hands ached, breathing slowly until her vision cleared. Then she splashed cold water on her face and returned to her patients. 4 more hours. She could do 4 more hours. She'd done harder things. The drive home required all her concentration. Twice, she pulled over to the shoulder, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles ached and the wave of vertigo passed. At their apartment building, she sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes, gathering strength to climb the stairs to the 2nd floor. Just stairs. Just 1 foot in front of the other. She could do this. Their neighbor from across the hall had watched Mila after school, as she did every Tuesday and Thursday. The elderly woman reported that Mila had eaten all her vegetables, done homework without being asked, and was an angel child. Nia thanked her profusely, paid her the $20 they'd agreed on even, though the woman always protested it was too much, and brought Mila home. Mila was already in pajamas, teeth brushed, waiting for bedtime stories. They read 3 books, one about brave princesses who saved themselves, one about friendly dragons, who were afraid of knights, one about stars and constellations and the mathematics of space. Mila asked her nightly question, "Mama, will you tell me about my daddy?" And Nia gave her nightly answer, the one she'd crafted carefully years ago. "Someday, baby. When you're older, I'll tell you everything. Was he nice?" "The nicest person I ever knew. Did he love me?" This was new. Mila had never asked this specific question before, and had always accepted Nia's vague promises of future explanations. Nia's throat tightened, emotions threatening to overflow. "He would have loved you more than all the stars in the sky. He would have counted every single one, and said it still wasn't enough to measure how much he loved you. Then why did he go away?" "Because I asked him to. Because I thought I was keeping him safe." Mila absorbed this with the seriousness she applied to all important information. Was he in danger? "We both were, baby. But that's over now. Except it wasn't." Nia knew it wasn't, had known for weeks that something was building, some reckoning from the past she'd tried so hard to escape. The feeling of being watched, the hang-up calls, the sense that the carefully constructed peace she'd built was about to shatter. Satisfied for now, Mila had drifted off, one hand clutching her stuffed elephant, the other reaching for Nia even in sleep. Nia sat beside her bed for a long time, watching her daughter breathe, memorizing her face in the dim glow of the nightlight. After Mila was asleep, Nia had sat at their small kitchen table with bills spread before her like accusations. Rent, utilities, car payment, school supplies, the minimum payment on medical, debt from Mila's birth complications that still haunted her 5 years later. Everything balanced on a knife's edge, one missed shift away from collapse. She'd built this life through sheer determination, but determination didn't make you less tired, didn't? And make the numbers add up more easily, didn't protect you from the past when it finally came calling. Her phone had buzzed, unknown number, Austin area code. She'd let it go to voicemail. Then another call, same number. On the third try, she'd answered, already knowing somehow that this was what she'd been dreading. Hello? Silence then. We need to talk, Nia. About old business that's become current again. The voice was familiar in the worst way, dragging her back to the person she'd been. Before Mila, before Julian, before she'd tried to build something clean and good. A voice from the life she'd burned every bridge to escape. I have nothing to say to you. That life is over. You might want to reconsider. I'm outside your building. Nice place. Quiet neighborhood. Good school nearby, I hear. Your daughter goes there, right? Mila? Pretty name. The threat was implicit but crystal clear. Nia's hand had trembled as she moved to the window, peering through the blinds. A dark sedan idled across the street, engine running, someone visible in the driver's seat. What do you want? A conversation. Tonight. Come down, or I come up. Your choice. But we both know you'll choose to come down. You've always been smart about protecting the people you love. She'd thought of Mila sleeping peacefully in the next room, innocent and safe, and completely unaware that her mother's past was a loaded gun pointed at both of them. Thought of Julian, safe in Seattle, unaware that the danger she'd tried to protect him from had finally circled back. Thought of all the careful years building this small, precious life that could shatter with one wrong move. Give me 10 minutes, and you stay in your car. We talk through the window, nothing more. She'd written Julian's number on a piece of paper then, the one she'd memorized but never called, never saved in her phone in case someone went through it looking for connections. Placed it on Mila's dresser with instructions written in careful print a 5-year-old could read. If I'm not here when you wake up, call this number. Tell him your name. Tell him you need help. He will come. I promise he will come. Then she'd kissed her daughter's forehead, whispered, I love you more than you'll ever know, and walked out to face whatever consequences had finally caught up with her. Now, as Julian's plane descended toward Austin, and Mila waited in her locked room counting to 60, for the third time, two worlds were about to collide. In the hospital, an unconscious woman had been admitted as a Jane Doe an hour earlier, found collapsed in her apartment building's stairwell by an early morning resident. No identification. Injuries suggesting assault. The overnight staff wouldn't recognize her for hours yet. The swelling and trauma obscured familiar features. Julian's rental car pulled up to 4782 Riverside Drive just as the building manager was letting paramedics into the building after a neighbor called about hearing a child crying. He took the stairs 2 at a time, arriving at the second-floor landing just as the apartment door opened from the inside. A small face appeared, red-rimmed eyes looking up at him, taking in this stranger who'd somehow become her lifeline. Julian, Mila whispered, you came. You really came. I promised I would. Behind her, the apartment was eerily quiet, morning light streaming through, windows onto furniture that spoke of care despite limited resources, and on the door handle, barely visible, a smear that made Julian's blood run cold, a handprint, small enough that it had to belong. To the woman who lived here, rusty with dried blood, as if someone had tried to make it home but couldn't quite reach safety. The paramedics arrived 30 seconds after Julian, their presence adding urgency to what was already surreal. Julian knelt down to Mila's level, acutely aware that this tiny person with his eyes was meeting him for the first time in the worst possible circumstances. Mila, these people are here to help. Can you tell us what happened? She looked at the paramedics, then back at Julian, clearly trying to decide how much to trust the sudden invasion of her home. I woke up and Mama wasn't here. I called you like she said. Then I heard someone in the hallway crying. It sounded like Mama, but different. One of the paramedics, a woman with kind eyes, stepped forward carefully. Sweetie, where did you hear the crying? In the stairwell. Down there. Mila pointed toward the building's interior stairs. The paramedics exchanged glances, and one immediately radioed something Julian couldn't quite hear. The woman stayed with them. Can you show us? Julian took Mila's hand. Her fingers were so small, trembling slightly, and together they followed the paramedic down the hallway. The stairwell door was already propped open by the building manager, a worried-looking man who'd apparently been the one to call emergency services. I heard someone crying around 6 a.m., he explained. Checked the stairs and found her on the landing between floors. Called 911 immediately, and there, on the small landing where the stairs turned, were signs of what had happened. A few drops of blood, a woman's shoe, the wall scuffed as if someone had braced against it, but no person. The paramedics had already been here. Where is she? Julian demanded. Where's Nia? If this is the same call, Mom was transported to Austin General 20 minutes ago, the building manager said. Unconscious, head trauma. They couldn't identify her. No purse, no ID. Julian felt the floor tilt beneath him. Austin General. Nia worked there, would be taken there, might be lying in the same emergency room where she'd spent yesterday saving other people's lives. Mila tugged on his sleeve. Is Mom at the hospital? Is she okay? The paramedic who'd stayed with them knelt down. We're going to find out right now, okay? You did exactly the right thing calling for help. Julian's mind raced through logistics with the same precision he applied to corporate negotiations, but this mattered infinitely more. Mila, we need to go to the hospital. Can you pack a small bag, maybe a change of clothes, your toothbrush and one toy? She nodded solemnly and disappeared into her room. Julian turned to the building manager. Lock this apartment. No one goes in without my permission or the police. Understand? Sir, I don't know who you are. I'm her father, Julian said, the words feeling strange and right and terrifying all at once. And until her mother can speak for herself, I'm in charge. Lock it. The man nodded, intimidated by something in Julian's voice that left no room for argument. Mila returned with a small backpack, her stuffed elephant's grey trunk visible from the top. She'd also put on sneakers with lights that blinked when she walked. Such a normal, childish thing in the middle of chaos. Ready, she announced. At the hospital, the early morning shift was in transition, staff moving, with the controlled urgency that defined emergency rooms everywhere. Julian approached the desk with Mila's hand firmly in his. We're looking for a Jane Doe brought in about 30 minutes ago. Found in an apartment building stairwell. Head trauma. The nurse typed something, frowning at her screen. Are you family? Yes. The lie came easier this time. This is her daughter. I'm the father. The nurse's expression softened as she looked at Mila. She's in trauma by 3. Dr. Rodriguez is with her now. Let me page him. They were directed to a waiting area that smelled of antiseptic and anxiety. Mila sat close to Julian, Mr. Elephant in her lap, her legs swinging because they didn't quite reach the floor. Have you been here before? Julian asked, needing to fill the silence. Lots of times. Mama works here. Sometimes she brings me on weekends when she can't find someone to watch me. The nurses let me color at their station. She looked around with familiarity. That's where the vending machines are. That's where the bathroom is. That hallway goes to where Mama works. The casual knowledge of a child who'd spent significant time in these corridors broke Julian's heart. How many shifts had Nia worked while juggling childcare? How many times had Mila sat in this waiting room or at a nurse's station, entertaining herself while her mother kept other people alive? A doctor in scrubs approached them, his expression carefully neutral in the way medical professionals learn to master. Family of Jane Doe from Riverside Drive? Julian stood. Yes. Her name is Nia Cole. She works here. She's a nurse in this, The doctor's eyes widened slightly. Nia? The woman we brought in is Nia? You know her? I'm Dr. Rodriguez. I work with her. God, I didn't recognize her with the swelling. He ran a hand over his face, clearly shaken. Why didn't she have an ID? What happened? We're trying to figure that out. How is she? Dr. Rodriguez glanced at Mila, clearly weighing how much to say in front of a child. She's stable. Concussion, 2 broken ribs, some contusions. We're monitoring for internal bleeding, but so far everything looks manageable. She regained consciousness briefly. Can we see her? Mila asked, her voice small but determined. Just for a moment. She needs rest. Doctor. Rodriguez led them through the emergency department, past curtained bays and monitoring equipment, to a room where Nia lay connected to various machines. Julian's first sight of her in 5 years hit him like a physical blow. Even bruised and swollen, even connected to 4S monitors, she was unmistakably the woman he'd loved. Her hair was shorter, her face thinner, but the curve of her jaw, the shape of her hands resting on the white sheets, all achingly familiar. Mama! Mila rushed to the bedside, and Nia's eyes fluttered open. Mila, baby, come here. Her voice was rough, barely above a whisper, but filled with relief. Mila carefully hugged her mother, mindful of the tubes and wires. I called Julian like you said. He came all the way from Seattle. Nia's eyes moved past her daughter, finding Julian standing near the door. For a long moment, they just looked at each other across 5 years of silence and secrets. Julian. The word came out broken, disbelieving. You actually came? Of course I came. He moved closer, drawn by something stronger than confusion or hurt, or any of the complicated emotions churning through him. You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous. We'll talk about that later. Right now, you need to rest. Mila, is she? Nia's hand reached for her daughter's face, checking for injuries, for signs of trauma. She's safe. Brave, actually. She did everything exactly right. Nia's eyes filled with tears. I tried to make it back. I got to the stairs, but everything went black. I was so scared she'd wake up alone. She wasn't alone for long, Julian said quietly. You made sure of that. Dr. Rodriguez cleared his throat. Nia, the police are going to want to talk to you. Your injuries are consistent with assault. Can you tell us what happened? Nia's face went carefully blank, the same expression Julian remembered from years ago when she was hiding something difficult. I fell. Down the stairs. Just clumsy. Nia. I fell, she repeated, more firmly. That's all. Julian recognized the lie, could see Dr. Rodriguez didn't believe it either, but pushing wouldn't help. Not now. Not with Mila listening to every word. Mama, are you going to be okay? Mila's voice was tiny, frightened in a way she hadn't allowed herself to sound on the phone with Julian. I'm going to be fine, baby. I just need to rest here for a little while. Can I stay with you? Nia looked at Julian, a question in her eyes. Julian needs to take you somewhere safe, somewhere you can sleep and eat and be a kid for a few hours. I'll be right here when you come back. But I need you to be brave a little longer, okay? Can you do that for me? Mila nodded, but her lower lip trembled. Julian felt something shift in his chest, some protective instinct he'd never experienced before. Mila, he said gently, why don't we let your mom rest for a few minutes? We can get breakfast and come right back. Promise we'll come back. I promise. As they turned to leave, Nia called out softly, Julian, wait. He paused, and she gestured for him to come closer. When he approached the bedside, she reached for his hand with the one that wasn't connected to N4. Thank you, she whispered, for answering, for coming, for taking care of her. Always, he said, and meant it with an intensity that surprised him. There are things you need to know about what happened 5 years ago, about Mila, about why, later, when you're stronger, when we have time and privacy. He squeezed her hand gently. Right now, just focus on healing. The apartment, there's a folder on my nightstand, legal documents, emergency information. You'll need, I'll find it. Don't worry about logistics right now. Her eyes searched his face, looking for something. Anger, maybe, or resentment for the years she'd stolen from him. Whatever she was looking for, she didn't seem to find it. Instead, fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she said, "for everything. For pushing you away, for keeping Mila from you, for—" "Nia." He stopped her with a gentle pressure on her hand. "We have time now. Time to talk, to explain, to figure everything out. You don't have to apologize for surviving." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. "She really needs to rest. The sedatives are going to kick in soon anyway." Julian nodded and stepped back. Mila gave her mother one more careful hug, whispering something Julian couldn't hear. Then they left, walking through the emergency department that was Nia's professional home, but was now the site of her own crisis. In the parking lot, the morning sun was fully up, Austin coming to life around them. Julian looked down at Mila, this small person who'd entered his life 6 hours ago and already rearranged everything he thought he knew about himself. "Are you hungry?" "A little. Mama usually makes pancakes on Wednesdays." "Then let's find pancakes, and then we'll figure out what comes next." She took his hand as they walked to his rental car, and Julian felt the weight of responsibility settle onto his shoulders. Not burden, responsibility. The difference was everything. Somewhere behind them, Nia was drifting into medicated sleep, trusting him with the most precious thing in her world. Somewhere ahead, there were questions that needed answers, dangers that needed addressing, and a life that needed building from fragments and possibilities. But right now, there was a little girl who needed pancakes and reassurance. That her world, though shaken, was not shattered beyond repair. Julian had answered the call at 3 a.m. Now he was learning what that answer really meant. They found a diner 3 blocks from the hospital, the kind of place with laminated menus and bottomless coffee, where the waitress called everyone Hon and didn't ask questions about the man and little girl who clearly hadn't slept. Mila studied the menu with intense concentration, though Julian suspected she already knew what she wanted. "Mama always gets me the chocolate chip pancakes," she said. "But she says I have to eat fruit too." "Your mama sounds smart. How about chocolate chip pancakes and a side of strawberries?" "Okay." She looked at him seriously. "Are you really my daddy?" The question, asked so directly in a public diner at 8 a.m., made Julian's heart stop. Around them, the ordinary sounds of breakfast continued, clinking silverware, coffee being poured, conversations about weather and work. But at their table, the world had narrowed to this moment. "I think I am," Julian said carefully. "Your birthday is October 15th, right?" "Yes." "And you're 5, about to be 6? "Yes. I knew your mom a long time ago. We were together until about 5.5 years ago, so the timing would be right." Mila absorbed this information, her expression thoughtful beyond her years. "Did you know about me? Before I called?" "No, sweetheart, I didn't know. If I had known, nothing in the world could have kept me away. Mama said you had to leave. She said it wasn't your fault." Julian felt his throat tighten. Even in his absence, Nia had protected him, had given him grace he wasn't certain he deserved. "What else did she say about me?" "That you were kind, that you helped people, that you were really good at math." Mila smiled slightly. "I'm good at math too. I can do problems in my head." "Can you? What's 23 plus 49? 72, she answered immediately. "That's right. How about 96 minus 38? 58. Julian couldn't help but smile. "You're very good at math. Mama says I get it from my daddy. I guess she meant you." The pancakes arrived, and for a few minutes they ate in comfortable silence. Julian watched Mila cut her food into precise squares, organize her strawberries by size, approach breakfast with the same methodical attention he applied to everything. The resemblance was undeniable, not just physical, but in mannerisms, in the way her mind worked. Julian. She'd set down her fork, her expression serious. "Is Mama really going to be okay?" "The doctor said she's stable. That means she's not getting worse. She just needs time to heal. She's been really tired lately, more tired than usual. Sometimes I wake up and she's fallen asleep at the table with her books." "Books?" "She's going to school, to be a better nurse. She studies after I go to bed, but I hear her sometimes. Mila pushed a strawberry around her plate. I pretend to be asleep when she checks on me because I don't want her to know I know she's tired. The picture forming in Julian's mind was both heartbreaking and impressive. Nia working full-time, raising a child alone, pursuing her degree, all while carrying whatever secrets had driven her to push him away. And doing it with such care that her daughter knew to protect her mother's feelings even at 5 years old. "Your mom is very strong," Julian said, "but everyone needs help sometimes. That's why she taught you to call me. She kept your number in a special place. She made me memorize it. She said to never write it down, just remember it." Mila looked at him with those unsettling green eyes. "Why did she hide it if you're my daddy? How do you explain adult complications to a 5-year-old? How do you talk about danger and sacrifice and impossible choices without scaring a child who'd already been through too much?" "Sometimes grown-ups make hard decisions to keep people safe," Julian said slowly. "Your mom thought keeping us apart would protect both of us. She was wrong about that, but she was trying her best. Are you mad at her?" "No, I'm not mad. Are you mad at me? For calling you?" Julian reached across the table, taking her small hand in his. "Mila, you calling me might be the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm not mad. I'm grateful." She seemed satisfied with this answer and returned to her pancakes. Julian pulled out his phone, scrolling through the logistics that needed handling. His assistant had sent increasingly frantic emails about meetings he was missing. Rebecca had called 4 times. His boss wanted an explanation for his sudden disappearance. All of it felt distant, irrelevant. He typed a quick response to his assistant, "Family emergency. Will be out of office indefinitely. Cancel everything." Then he turned his phone face down and focused on the little girl across from him. After breakfast, they returned to the hospital. Dr. Rodriguez met them in the hallway outside Nia's room, his expression troubled. "She's awake and asking for both of you." "But Julian, can I speak with you privately first?" Julian looked at Mila. "Can you sit right here for just a minute? Don't move from this chair." "I won't." Dr. Rodriguez led him a few feet away, lowering his voice. "Those injuries aren't from a fall. I've seen enough assault cases to know the difference. Someone hurt her deliberately. I suspected as much. She won't say what happened, won't file a police report, but whoever did this could come back. They won't get near her again," Julian said, with a certainty that surprised him. "The police were here earlier. They wanted to ask questions, but Nia refused to talk to them. There's not much they can do if she won't cooperate." "Doctor," Rodriguez hesitated, "I don't know what your situation is, what your relationship was or is, but she needs support right now. And protection, probably. She'll have both." They returned to collect Mila, and Dr. Rodriguez led them to Nia's room. She was sitting up slightly, her face still swollen, but her eyes clearer than they'd been earlier. "Baby," she said when Mila entered, opening her arms. Mila climbed carefully onto the bed, mindful of the medical equipment. "We got pancakes. Julian, let me get chocolate chips." "Did he?" Nia's eyes found Julian's over their daughter's head. That was nice of him. He's really good at ordering breakfast. And he knows math like me. A small smile crossed Nia's bruised face. "I told you that you got that from somewhere." Julian pulled a chair close to the bed, but not too close, maintaining the careful distance that felt necessary given the complicated history between them. "Dr. Rodriguez says you can probably be discharged this afternoon if your scans look good." "I don't have insurance that'll cover a hospital stay," Nia said quietly. "I need to leave as soon as possible." "You work here, don't they?" "I'm part-time, no benefits yet. I was supposed to go full-time next month when I finish my degree." The casual mention of financial stress, delivered matter-of-factly, like it was just another fact of life, made Julian's chest tight. "Don't worry about the bill. I'll handle it." "Julian, you can't just—" "Yes, I can. We'll discuss it later. Right now we need to talk about what happens when you're discharged. You can't go back to the apartment." Nia's expression closed off, the same walls he remembered from 5 years ago slamming into place. "We'll be fine. Will you? Whoever did this knows where you live. They know about Mila. We'll stay with a friend." "What friend?" Name one person you'd put in danger by showing up on their doorstep. Nia's silence was enough. Julian leaned forward, keeping his voice gentle but firm. I have resources. I can get you somewhere safe. A hotel, an apartment, whatever you need. Just for a few days until we figure this out. I can't accept that. Why not? Because I don't take charity. I don't take handouts. I've built a life for us on our own terms, and I'm not about to... This isn't charity, Nia. This is me helping the mother of my child stay safe. There's a difference. You don't know she's your child, Nia said, but there was no conviction in it. Julian looked at Mila, who was watching this exchange with worried eyes. I'm about 99% sure, and we can verify the other 1% with a DNA test if you need that for legal purposes. But I know. I've known since the moment I saw her. The eyes, Nia whispered. The eyes, the math skills, the way she organizes her food before eating it. She's mine, Nia. You know it, I know it, and I'm not walking away this time. Mila looked between them. I don't understand. Why would you walk away? I didn't walk away from you, sweetheart, Julian said quickly. I didn't know about you. Your mom and I had some complicated adult problems, and I left before you were born. But I'm here now. Are you staying? The question hung in the air. Julian saw Nia tense, saw her waiting for his answer, probably expecting him to hedge, to make promises he couldn't keep. Yes, he said simply. I'm staying. In Austin? You're moving back? Nia's voice was sharp with disbelief. Already started the process. I've submitted my resignation to my company in Seattle. I'll need to go back briefly to handle the transition and pack my things. But yes, I'm moving back to Austin. Julian, you can't just quit your job and move across the country because I have a daughter who needs me? Because her mother was assaulted and won't accept help? Because I've spent 5 years building a life that looked successful but felt empty, and now I have a chance at something real. He met her eyes steadily. Watch me. Nia's composure cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. You don't owe us anything. I made the choice to push you away. I made the choice to raise her alone. Those were my decisions, my consequences, and I'm making my choice now. I'm choosing to be here, to help, to be her father. He paused. If you'll let me, I don't know how to do this. How to let someone in after being alone for so long. We'll figure it out, one day at a time, one pancake breakfast at a time. Mila, who'd been silent during this exchange, spoke up. I want him to stay, Mama. Is that okay? Nia looked at her daughter, then at Julian, something shifting in her expression. The walls didn't come down completely, but they lowered slightly. Okay, you can help. But we need rules, boundaries, discussions about everything before decisions get made. Agreed. And you don't just take over. I've been making decisions for her for 5 years. You don't override me. I wouldn't dream of it. And we tell her the truth. Age-appropriate truth, but truth. No more secrets. That works both ways, Nia. You need to tell me what happened last night. Who hurt you? What are you running from? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, not here, not now, but yes, you deserve the truth. Dr. Rodriguez knocked and entered, chart in hand. Good news. Your scans are clear. I'm comfortable discharging you with strict instructions for rest. Absolutely no work for at least a week. Preferably 2. I can't miss 2 weeks of work. I'll talk to the administration, Dr. Rodriguez interrupted. We'll figure out paid leave, short-term disability, something. Nia, you take care of everyone else. Let us take care of you for once. After he left, Julian stood. I'm going to go make some phone calls, get arrangements made. Mila, do you want to stay with your mom or come with me? Stay with Mama. Okay, I'll be right outside if you need me. In the hallway, Julian leaned against the wall and finally let himself process everything that had happened in the past 12 hours. He'd answered a phone call from a stranger, flown across the country, met his daughter, found the woman he'd never stopped loving even when he tried, and made a commitment that would change the trajectory of his entire life. His phone buzzed again, his boss this time, demanding answers. Julian answered, keeping his voice low. I need to take a leave of absence. Family emergency. Julian, we're in the middle of the Tokyo deal. You can't just... I'm sorry. I know the timing is terrible, but this is non-negotiable. How long? I don't know. Indefinitely. Actually, consider this my official resignation. I'll send formal documentation, but I can't do this anymore. You're throwing away your career over a family emergency. What family? You don't have... I do now. I'll be in touch about the transition. He hung up before his boss could argue further. The relief was immediate and surprising. 5 years of building a career that meant nothing, and walking away felt like freedom. When he returned to the room, Mila was curled against Nia's side, both of them drowsy. They looked up when he entered. All set, he said. There's a corporate apartment building near here. I've rented a 2-bedroom for the next month. Furnished, secure, available immediately. Julian, it's already done. You can argue with me about it later when you have more energy. Right now, let's just accept help when it's offered. Nia studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, thank you. It wasn't much, just 2 words of acceptance. But it felt like progress. Mila yawned, her eyes drifting closed. Are you going to stay at the apartment too? She asked Julian sleepily. He looked at Nia, making it her choice. She hesitated. Then we have 2 bedrooms. You can take the second one. If you want. I want, Julian said simply. And just like that, they became something they'd never been before. A family, fragile and uncertain, but together. The apartment was generic but clean. Corporate housing designed for temporary stays, with neutral colors and furniture that belonged to no one. Nia slept most of the first day, her body finally allowing itself to rest now that she wasn't solely responsible for everything. Julian and Mila navigated their new reality with careful politeness, 2 strangers learning each other through small interactions. Do you like grilled cheese? Julian asked, staring at the unfamiliar kitchen. Yes. Cut diagonal, not straight across. Diagonal. Got it. What else should I know? Mila considered this seriously. No crusts. Mama says I have to eat them, but you're new, so maybe you have different rules. How about we compromise? Half the crusts. Deal. They ate lunch together at the small dining table, Mila telling him about school, her teacher, her best friend who was moving away next month. Julian absorbed every detail, hungry for the ordinary information that made up his daughter's life. Do you have any kids besides me? Mila asked suddenly. No. Just you. Do you have a wife? No. I have a girlfriend. Well, had a girlfriend. In Seattle. But we weren't married. Is she nice? Julian thought about Rebecca, with her perfect pedigree and carefully managed life. She's nice enough, but we weren't right for each other. Because of me? No, sweetheart. We weren't right for each other long before I knew about you. I just didn't want to admit it. Mila absorbed this, then returned to her sandwich. Julian marveled at how easily she accepted these complicated truths, how resilient children could be when given honest information in manageable pieces. That evening, after Mila was asleep in one bedroom and Nia was resting in the other, Julian sat in the living room with his laptop, researching Austin neighborhoods, schools, and what it would take to build a real life here instead of a temporary solution. His phone buzzed. Rebecca, again. He'd been avoiding her calls, but that wasn't fair. He answered. Finally, she said, her voice sharp. Do you have any idea how humiliating this has been? Everyone asking me where you are. What family emergency could be more important than your job? I'm sorry for the embarrassment. I should have called sooner. That's it? You're sorry for the embarrassment? Julian, you disappeared in the middle of the night. You quit your job. You won't answer questions. What's going on? I have a daughter, in Austin. I just found out. Her mother was injured, and they need me here. Silence then. You have a daughter. How old? 5. Almost 6. More silence as Rebecca did the math. We'd been together for 8 months. You had a child this whole time and didn't know. The mother and I broke up before she knew she was pregnant. She never told me. And you believe her? Julian, this sounds like a setup. Some woman from your past sees you're successful now, and suddenly there's a convenient child. It's not like that. How do you know? Have you done a paternity test? Verified any of this? Julian thought about Mila's eyes, her mathematical mind, the way she organized her world with the same precision he'd always used. I know. That's not good enough. You're throwing away your entire life on instinct? I'm not throwing away my life. I'm finding it. For the first time in years, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, with some woman who kept your child from you. Julian, listen to yourself. This is insane. Maybe. But it's my insanity to navigate. Rebecca, you deserve someone who's fully present, fully committed. That was never going to be me. I'm sorry I wasted your time. Don't do this. Come back to Seattle. We can talk about this reasonably. There's nothing to talk about. I'm staying in Austin. I'm sorry. He ended the call before she could argue further. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic. This was his life now. A rented apartment, a daughter he barely knew, a woman who'd kept secrets for 5 years. And somehow it felt more real than anything he'd built in Seattle. The bedroom door opened, and Nia emerged, moving carefully. One hand pressed to her ribs. Heard you on the phone. Is everything okay? Just ending things with my girlfriend. Ex-girlfriend now. I'm sorry. I'm not. He gestured to the couch. Want to sit? We should probably talk. Nia lowered herself onto the couch with a wince, keeping distance between them. For a long moment, neither spoke. The weight of 5 years sat heavy in space. I need to tell you about Harper Place, Nia said finally. Okay. It's not a place. It's a safety deposit box at Harper Bank downtown. Everything's there. Birth certificate with your name, DNA test results from when. Mila was 1, legal documents, money for emergencies. I wanted her to have proof, when she was older, that she wasn't abandoned, that you didn't know. Julian absorbed this, another piece of the careful planning Nia had done to protect everyone. You put my name on her birth certificate? I couldn't lie about that. Not on something so permanent. I told the hospital you were deployed overseas, couldn't be present. It explained the absence without complications. What else is in the box? About $12,000. Emergency fund in case something happened to me. And a letter to you, explaining everything, with instructions for a lawyer to find you if I died. Julian felt his throat tighten. You planned for every contingency. I had to. When you're alone with a child, you plan for everything. You weren't supposed to be alone. Nia looked at him, her expression complicated. I made choices that led to that. I don't get to complain about the consequences. Tell me what happened. 5 years ago. The real reason you pushed me away. She was quiet for so long, Julian thought she might refuse. Then she started talking, her voice low and steady. You remember what I was doing when we met? The work I'd left behind? You said you were done with that life, that you were going straight, getting your nursing prerequisites, building something clean. I did, but the people I used to work for don't really accept resignations. They just wait. And eventually they came back. She twisted her hands in her lap. His name was Vincent Reeves. He wanted me to do one more job. Said if I didn't, there would be consequences. For you, you should have told me. We could have handled it together. How? You were in finance, Julian. Clean record, promising career. Getting involved with my mess would have destroyed everything you were building. And Vincent was serious. He showed me photos. You leaving work, you at the gym, you at our apartment. He knew your entire routine. So you chose to protect me by ending us. I chose to protect you by making you leave. I thought if you were gone, out of Austin, completely separated from me, he'd leave you alone. And he did. She paused. What I didn't know was that I was already pregnant. Found out 2 weeks after you left. Julian tried to imagine it. Nia, alone, discovering she was pregnant with his child, unable to reach out because she was trying to keep him safe. Why didn't you call once you knew? Because Vincent was still watching, still checking. For the first year, he'd ask about you occasionally, making sure we stayed separated. If I'd brought you back, if you'd known about Mila, he would have used both of you against me. What happened to him? To Vincent? Nia's expression darkened. He died 3 years ago. Car accidents, they said, but in that world, accidents are rarely accidental. Someone else took over his operations, but they didn't care about old threats. I thought we were finally free, but we weren't. Last week, Vincent's brother showed up. Apparently Vincent had told him about me, about what I used to do, about skills I had. He wanted those skills for a job. I refused. He didn't take it well. He's the one who hurt you. He's the one who reminded me that you can't ever fully escape your past. Nia looked at Julian directly, but then he died too. The same night he threatened me. They found him 3 blocks from my apartment. Shot, professional hit. The police think I'm connected, even though I have no idea who killed him. Julian processed this information, the pieces clicking into place. So when Mila called me, you were unconscious in the stairwell, Vincent. S' brother was dead nearby, and the police were looking for connections. Yes, and now you're here, involved, exactly what I spent 5 years trying to prevent. I'm here because I choose to be. Because you taught our daughter to call for help, and she was brave enough to do it. I'm sorry, Nia said, tears sliding down her bruised face. For all of it. For pushing you away, for keeping Mila from you, for being too scared to tell you the truth even when the threat was gone. Julian moved closer, closing the distance on the couch, and took her hand carefully. You made impossible choices with the information you had. You protected Mila, and you tried to protect me. I'm not going to punish you for that. You should be angry. I'm not. I'm sad for the years we lost, but I'm not angry. He squeezed her hand gently. We have now. We have the chance to do this right, to build something together. If you're willing, I don't know how. I've been alone for so long, making all the decisions, not having to consider anyone else's opinion. Then we'll learn together. Set boundaries, talk before making big decisions, figure out how to co-parent even though we're basically strangers now. We're not strangers, Nia said softly. I know exactly how you take your coffee. I know you can't sleep if there's an unresolved problem. I know you do this thing with your jaw when you're trying not to show emotion. Julian realized she was right. He was clenching his jaw right now. He consciously relaxed it. Fair point. We were something once. We can be something again. Maybe not what we were, but something new. What if I mess it up? What if I panic and push you away again? Then we talk about it. We work through it. But no more unilateral decisions about what's best for everyone. We're a team now, whether we planned for it or not. Mila's door opened, and she appeared, sleepy-eyed and clutching her elephant. I had a bad dream. Come here, baby, Nia said, opening her arms carefully. Mila climbed onto the couch between them, and without thinking, they both adjusted to make room, creating a small protected space for her. Julian felt the rightness of it. This accidental family, born from crisis and secrets, learning how to exist together. What was the dream about? He asked. You left. You went back to Seattle and didn't come back. Julian felt his heart break a little. I'm not going anywhere, Mila. I promise. You promise, not just a regular promise. 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 I might need to go back to Seattle for a few days to pack my things, but I'm coming back. This is where I live now. With us? He looked at Nia, who nodded slowly. With you. If that's okay with your mom, it's okay, Nia said quietly. It's more than okay. They sat like that for a while, Mila falling back asleep between them, the apartment settling into nighttime quiet. Eventually, Julian carried Mila back to bed, tucking her in with practiced care that surprised him, paternal instincts emerging fully formed. When he returned to the living room, Nia was still on the couch, looking exhausted, but more peaceful than she had since he'd arrived. Thank you, she said, for not being angry, for understanding, for staying. Thank you for calling, for teaching her my number, for trusting that I'd answer after all this time. I always knew you would. That was never the question. What was the question? Whether I was brave enough to let you. She stood carefully. I should sleep. Tomorrow we need to figure out logistics. School for Mila, work for me eventually. What happens next? Tomorrow. Tonight. Just rest. As she headed to her room, she paused at the door. Julian, I wrote you a letter, in the safety deposit box. When you're ready, I'd like you to read it. Okay, it says things I should have said 5 years ago. Things I'm still not brave enough to say out loud. I'll read it, when you're ready for me to. She nodded and disappeared into her room, leaving Julian alone with his thoughts. And the monumental shift his life had taken in less than 48 hours. He'd answered a call at 3 a.m. Now he had a daughter, a broken family to help rebuild, and a future that looked nothing like the one he'd planned. And for the first time in 5 years, he felt like he was exactly where he belonged. The blog post appeared at 6:47 a.m. on day 3, titled, Tech Finance Wunderkind. Is hidden past, secret child, mysterious assault, and questions no one's answering. Julian saw it before his coffee finished brewing, sent by his former assistant with a single word, sorry. By the time he'd read through the article, filled with half-truths and speculation, it had already spread to 3 major financial news sites and was trending on social media. He closed his laptop quietly, not wanting to wake Nia or Mila, but his hands were shaking. Someone had leaked everything. His position at Apex, his sudden resignation, the existence of a child even. Details about Nia's past that should have been sealed juvenile records. The article stopped just short of libel, using words like alleged, and sources say while painting a picture of scandal and deception. Don't read the comments, Nia said from the doorway, making him jump. She looked pale but steady, moving more easily than yesterday. Too late. He turned the screen toward her. Someone did a deep investigation. This isn't just gossip. They have details about your background, about the incident last week, about everything. Nia scrolled through the article, her expression hardening with each paragraph. Gold digger traps rich executives with pregnancy. Baby mama conveniently appears after he makes millions. Nurse with criminal connections orchestrates elaborate She looked up at him. They're making me the villain. They're making both of us look like idiots or criminals, depending on which paragraph you read. What about Mila? Do they mention her name? Julian scanned back through. No, they say a 5-year-old daughter but don't name her. Small mercy. That won't last. Someone at her school will talk, or a neighbor, or... Nia's breathing was becoming rapid, panic setting in. Hey, look at me. Julian moved to her side. We'll handle this. One step at a time. First priority is protecting Mila. How? The internet is forever. This will follow her, only if we let it. We set boundaries, we control the narrative as much as possible, and we make it clear that our daughter is off limits. His phone rang. His mother. He'd been putting off this call, but there was no avoiding it now. Julian Alexander Crestwood, I have been trying to reach you for 2 days. What is this nonsense I'm seeing online about a secret child? Mom, I was going to call. Were you? When? After the entire internet knew. I have a granddaughter, and I'm finding out from my bridge club. It's complicated. 5 years old, the article says. 5 years you've known? 1 week. I've known for 1 week, Mom. Silence. Then softer. What? He explained, condensed version, hitting the essential points. When he finished, his mother was crying. Oh, honey. That poor girl, raising your baby alone, thinking she was protecting you. And that sweet child, when can I meet her? Soon, I promise. Right now we're just trying to contain this media situation. Julian, listen to me. I don't care what those vultures say online. You do right by that little girl and her mother. Everything else is noise. He hung up feeling marginally better, then noticed the news van pulling up to the apartment building. Through the window, he could see a cameraman setting up. They found us, he said grimly. By 8 a.m., there were 2 vans, several photographers, and a handful of people with phones hoping for viral content. Julian called his lawyer, then a crisis management firm he'd worked with, in Seattle, then started making a list of non-negotiable boundaries. We need to get Mila to school without running that gauntlet, Nia said, peering through the blinds. Does the building have a back entrance? Service entrance near the parking garage. Residents have keycard access. 20 minutes later, they smuggled Mila out through the service entrance, the little girl treating it like an adventure, despite the tension radiating from both adults. Are we spies now? She whispered. Something like that, Julian said. Cool. Do spies get waffles after school? Absolutely. But at school, 2 photographers were already waiting. Julian's entire body went rigid. He parked but didn't get out immediately, assessing the situation. Stay in the car, he told Nia, then got out and approached the photographers directly. Gentlemen, you're on school property without authorization. You have 30 seconds to leave before I call the police and the school board. Just a few questions, Mr. Crestwood. How long have you known about your daughter? 20 seconds, and if I see any photos of my child anywhere, I will pursue legal action. So aggressive you'll need to explain it to bankruptcy lawyers. Do I make myself clear? Public interest, Mr. Crestwood. You're a public figure who... I'm a private citizen who resigned his position. My child is absolutely off limits. 15 seconds. The school principal appeared, flanked by security. This is private property. Leave now or be escorted out by police. The photographers retreated to the sidewalk, technically public property, but at least they weren't on campus. The principal pulled Julian aside. Mr. Crestwood, we're implementing additional security measures. No unauthorized visitors, no photographs on campus. Mila's safety is our priority. Thank you. I'm sorry for bringing this to your doorstep. You didn't bring it. Irresponsible media did. We'll protect our students. Inside the car, Mila had her face pressed to the window, watching everything. When Julian returned, she looked worried. Why were those people taking pictures, Daddy? The word Daddy, said so naturally now, nearly undid him, but he kept his composure. Sometimes when someone is in the news, people get curious. They want pictures and stories. Are you in the news? Right now, yes, but it'll pass. In the meantime, if anyone you don't know tries to take your picture or ask you questions, what do you say? Mila thought about it, remembering their earlier conversation. No pictures, please. Perfect. And then you find a teacher or trusted adult immediately. Can you do that? Yes. Like a spy code. Exactly like a spy code. They got her into school safely, but Julian's phone was already exploding with new alerts. More articles, more speculation, and now, predictably, a statement from Apex Financial. We respect Julian Crestwood's personal privacy and wish him well in his future endeavors. However, we want to clarify that his resignation was accepted due to breach of contract and failure to disclose conflicts of interest that could impact fiduciary responsibilities. They're covering themselves, Julian muttered, showing Nia the statement, making it sound like I did something wrong. Did you? Technically? I had a morality clause, full disclosure of anything that could impact company reputation, but I didn't know about Mila when I signed it, and by the time I found out, I'd already resigned. Will they sue? Probably. Let them. I have documentation of my resignation timeline. He looked at her seriously. Nia, this is going to get worse before it gets better. My old life isn't letting go quietly. If you want me to step back, handle this from a distance. No. Her answer was immediate and fierce. We're not doing that again. No more protecting each other by pushing away, even if it means dealing with this circus. Even then, back at the apartment, they made a plan. Julian called in favors, hiring a security consultant to assess their situation, and a family lawyer to establish legal boundaries. No interviews, he dictated to his crisis manager, a sharp professional named Patricia who specialized in reputation management. No photos of Mila, ever. Any outlet that publishes her image gets sued immediately, and we're drafting a statement. Patricia nodded approvingly. What do you want to say? Julian looked at Nia. We say the truth. Simple version. They drafted it together, going through multiple versions before landing on something that felt right. I recently learned I have a daughter. Her mother and I are working together to build a relationship that prioritizes our child's well-being and privacy. Children deserve to grow up without cameras and commentary. I'm asking for basic human decency. Leave my daughter alone. Everything else is between adults and can be handled through appropriate legal channels. My family is not entertainment. Short, direct, protective, Patricia approved. I'll distribute it within the hour. But be prepared, it won't stop everyone. She was right. By afternoon, the comment sections were vicious. It's easy to demand privacy after hiding a kid for 5 years. What about the child's right to know her father? 5 years of abandonment and now he wants privacy? The mother clearly knew what she was doing. Waited until he was worth millions. Nurse with a criminal past. This smells like a setup. Nia closed her laptop. I can't read anymore. Then don't. We know the truth. That's what matters. Is it? She gestured at her phone, still buzzing with notifications. My supervisor called. They're putting me on extended leave pending an internal review of my connection to the death last week. Friends I haven't heard from in years are suddenly messaging, asking if the stories are true. This is affecting my entire life. Julian moved to her side. We'll handle each thing as it comes. The lawyer is already drafting responses. This is your life now, Julian. Constant damage control because of decisions I made 5 years ago. No. This is temporary chaos because people are invasive and cruel, but it will pass. Media cycles move fast. Something else will grab their attention. And if it doesn't, then we live our lives anyway. Mila goes to school. You return to work when you're cleared. I find new employment in Austin. We keep building what we started. At school pickup, they were ready. The security consultant had arranged for an off-duty police officer to accompany them. The photographers were back. More aggressive. Nia, did you plan this reunion? Mr. Crestwood, how does it feel knowing you missed 5 years of your daughter's life? Is the assault connected to your past, Nia? Was the child part of a long-term plan? Julian positioned himself strategically, blocking any angle to where Mila would emerge. When she came out, chattering about her art project, he scooped her up, shielding her face with his hand. No pictures, please. Mila called out, remembering her line. One photographer persisted, shoving a microphone toward them, trying to get it near Mila's face. Julian stopped, set Mila down carefully behind him, and stepped directly into the man's space. If you ever, he said, voice deadly quiet, but carrying absolute authority, put a microphone near my daughter again, we will have a very different conversation. Am I understood? The photographer smirked, sensing a confrontation that would make good footage. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I have lawyers who specialize in making problems disappear. I also have resources you can't imagine and patience that has completely run out. Test me if you want. See what happens. The moment was caught on video, of course. By evening, it was trending. Millionaire dad threatens reporter. The optics were terrible. Patricia called, frustrated. You can't threaten the press, Julian. It plays right into their hands. He was targeting my 5-year-old daughter with a microphone. I understand, but no buts. My daughter's safety comes before my public image. If that's not clear, we need a new strategy. Silence, then, understood. We'll work with it. A protective father defending his child. We can frame that. After he hung up, Nia touched his arm. That video is everywhere. People are calling you aggressive, unstable, saying you're dangerous. Let them. Your reputation means nothing compared to Mila's well-being. I'd rather be the villain who protected his daughter than the saint who let her be exploited for clicks and views. That evening, after Mila was asleep, they sat at the small dining table in heavy silence. The apartment felt smaller, with the weight of the world's judgment pressing against the walls. Julian, Nia started, voice barely above a whisper. Are you sure you're choosing us over them? Your old life, your career, your reputation, you're burning all of it down. What if you regret it? He reached across the table, taking her hand. I'm choosing us. Every time. Every day. Whatever it costs. That's easy to say now, in the heat of the moment. But when things calm down, When you realize what you've given up. I realized what I gave up 5 years ago when I left Austin. I've spent half a decade building a life that looked successful but felt empty. Now, I have a daughter who calls me daddy, who trusts me to protect her, who does math in her head and argues about whether unicorns are real and makes everything make sense. He squeezed her hand gently. This isn't a sacrifice, Nia. This is coming home. What if I can't trust it? What if I keep waiting for you to leave? Then I'll keep staying until you believe it. However long that takes. Outside, a camera flash illuminated the window briefly before security escorted the photographer away from the building. Inside, Julian and Nia sat in the quiet, refrigerator humming, clock ticking, the soft sound of Mila's white noise machine from her room. I need you to understand something, Julian said. Those people out there, the articles, the comments, the judgment, none of it matters. The only opinions I care about are in this apartment, yours and Mila's. If you say stay, I stay. If you say go, I go. But it's your call, not theirs. Nia's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to do this. How to let someone in after being alone for so long. We figure it out together. One day at a time. One pancake breakfast at a time. A small smile broke through her tears. You do make excellent pancakes. I have many hidden talents. You'll discover them gradually. The moment hung between them, tentative, fragile, real. Then Nia's phone buzzed. Another news alert, another invasion of privacy, another stranger with an opinion about their lives. But this time, she silenced it without reading. Tomorrow, she said, we teach Mila more about boundaries, about saying no to people who don't respect her space, about protecting herself. Tomorrow, Julian agreed. Tonight, we just breathe. Are you really choosing us? The question came out small, vulnerable, so different from the strong front Nia usually maintained. Julian stood, moved around the table, and knelt beside her chair so they were eye level. I'm choosing us. Every single time. Every day, every decision, every moment. This is where I belong. With you. With Mila. Building something real instead of something that just looks good from the outside. Promise? Promise, promise. The kind Mila makes me swear to. Nia laughed. A real laugh. The first he'd heard since arriving. That's the binding kind. I know. Outside, the media circus continued its vigil. Cameras ready for any movement, any story, any moment they could capture and sell. Inside, 3 people who'd found each other against impossible odds began. Learning that family wasn't about perfect circumstances or ideal timing. It was about showing up, staying present, and choosing each other, even when the world offered 1,000 reasons not to. 3 weeks after the media storm peaked, the Austin Community Center hosted their monthly Help Helpers Help Workshop, a program teaching children emergency preparedness. Nia had volunteered months ago, back when life was simpler, lonelier. She'd almost cancelled, but Mila had been excited, and Julian had offered to come along. Now, watching 30 children practice dialing emergency numbers on disconnected phones, Julian understood why this mattered to Nia. What's the most important thing to remember? The instructor asked. Mila's hand shot up. Say your name clearly and where you are. Exactly right. And why? Because help can't come if they don't know where to go. Mila spoke with the confidence of someone who'd lived this lesson. And you have to be brave even when you're scared. The instructor smiled. Has anyone here ever had to call for help? Mila's hand went up again, slower this time. I called someone when my mama was hurt. He came all the way from Seattle. Several parents turned to look at Julian, some with recognition from the news coverage, others just curious. The viral video had died down, but hadn't disappeared completely. That was very brave, the instructor said gently. What made you decide to call? Mama told me to. She said there are people who will always answer if you really need them. You just have to be brave enough to ask. After the demonstration, Nia stood to address the group. Julian watched from the back, Mila beside him coloring in her workbook. I'm Nia Cole, pediatric nurse at Austin General, she began, her voice steady despite the eyes on her. I see a lot of emergencies, and I can tell you that asking for help is not weakness, it's wisdom. Teaching our children to reach out when they're scared, hurt, or lost might be the most important thing we ever do. Her eyes found Julian's across the room. Sometimes we think we're protecting people by not asking for help. We think we're being strong by carrying everything alone. But real strength is knowing when to make that call, send that message. Reach out even when you're terrified of being a burden. Several parents nodded. A few wiped their eyes. Mila had stopped coloring, listening to her mother with complete focus. My daughter called for help when I couldn't. She was 5 years old, alone and scared, but she remembered what we practiced. She knew who to call. Nia's voice wavered slightly. And because she was brave enough to ask, everything changed. Help came. We survived. We're building something new. The room applauded. After the session ended, several parents approached Nia, thanking her for sharing, for being vulnerable. Julian watched her handle each interaction with grace, no longer hiding, behind walls built from years of protecting everyone but herself. That evening, after Mila was asleep, Julian and Nia sat on the small balcony of their apartment under Austin's star-filled sky. The media attention had finally faded to background noise, replaced by the actual work of building a life together. "I've been thinking about that phone call," Julian said. "The one that started all this. The 3 a.m. call that destroyed your perfectly organized life. The call that brought me home." He leaned forward, hands clasped. "But it wasn't random, was it? It was the result of 1,000 tiny decisions you made over 5 years. Nia looked at him, curious. "You taught her to memorize my number, practiced emergency scenarios, wrote my name on her birth certificate, put together the safety deposit box with all the evidence. Every single one of those choices was you preparing for the possibility that someday she might need me." His voice was thick with emotion. "You never really let me go." "I tried to," Nia admitted softly. "God, I tried. But every time I looked at her, I saw you. Your eyes, your expressions, your brilliant, stubborn brain. How do you let go of that? You don't. You do what you did. You prepare for the day when the separation becomes impossible to maintain. I was terrified she'd call, and you wouldn't answer. I almost didn't," Julian confessed. "My finger was on the decline button. Unknown number, wrong area code, 3 in the morning. Nothing good happens from calls like that. What changed your mind? Honestly, I don't know. Instinct, maybe. Something told me this call mattered." He met her eyes. "I've spent 3 weeks thinking about all the ways that call could have gone differently. If I'd declined, if you hadn't prepared her, if Mila hadn't been brave enough to try, but she was. And you did answer, because you taught her to ask, and somewhere deep down, you trusted that I would answer." He reached for her hand. "That's not random, Nia. That's faith." The next morning, Mila came into the kitchen with her sneakers, the complicated ones with multiple straps that she'd insisted on, despite Nia's warnings they'd be hard to manage. She approached Julian, who was making his now signature pancakes shaped like stars. She hesitated, shoe in hand, then took a breath. "Dad, can you—" She stopped, suddenly uncertain, the words still new enough to catch sometimes. Julian immediately knelt down, meeting her at eye level. "Can I help with your shoes?" Mila nodded, then softly, "Is it okay to call you Dad?" "Mila." He took her small hands in his. "You can call me whatever feels right to you. Dad, Daddy, Julian, whatever makes you comfortable. There's no wrong answer. What if I try Dad and then want to change it? Then you change it. This is your choice, always." She considered this, serious and thoughtful beyond her years. "I think Dad fits. Like when you try on shoes and they're exactly right." Julian's eyes filled with tears he didn't bother hiding. "Yeah, baby. I think it fits too." From the doorway, Nia watched them, her own tears falling freely. This moment, this simple, beautiful moment of a daughter asking her father for help with her shoes, was everything she'd denied them both for 5 years. Everything she'd been trying to protect them from had cost them this. But they had it now. That weekend, Julian rented a small house on the coast. Nothing fancy, just 3 bedrooms and a porch overlooking the water. They needed distance from Austin, from the lingering attention, from the weight of everything that had happened. After Mila was asleep, exhausted from a day of building sandcastles and chasing waves, Julian and Nia sat on the porch steps. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, rhythmic and eternal. "I want to build a life where the hard parts don't surprise us," Julian said suddenly. Nia turned to him. "What does that mean?" "It means no more secrets, no more protecting each other by pushing away. When things get difficult, and they will, we face them together." He took her hand. "I want the slow version, Nia, not the dramatic reunion, not the whirlwind romance that crashes and burns. I want the kind of forever that's built on 1,000 tiny choices to stay. That's not very exciting." "I've been excited. It gave me ulcers and emptiness." He smiled slightly. "I'll take boring and real over exciting and hollow any day." Nia leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture of trust that felt enormous. "I'm scared I don't know how to do this. The normal family thing, neither do I. We'll figure it out together. What if we mess it up? Then we apologize, adjust, and try again. That's what families do, right?" The waves continued their endless conversation with the shore. Above them, stars appeared one by one as darkness deepened. Inside, Mila slept peacefully, her stuffed elephant tucked under one arm, secured by the knowledge that both her parents were nearby. "Julian," Nia said softly. "Yeah? Thank you for answering the call." He kissed the top of her head, gentle and reverent. "Thank you for making it." They sat there as night settled fully, 2 people who'd lost 5 years learning how to build forever from what remained. It wasn't the dramatic ending movies promised. It was better, quieter, truer, earned through every hard choice and brave moment that had brought them here. The call at 3 a.m. hadn't been random at all. It had been inevitable, the culmination of 1,000 tiny decisions that said, "We matter, we're worth fighting for, and when the moment comes, we'll be brave enough to reach out and answer." The kitchen had become their sacred space, not because it was grand or beautiful, but because it held their daily life. Julian had learned that Nia hummed while chopping vegetables, that Mila only ate carrots if they were cut into, coins not sticks, that Tuesday mornings required extra coffee because Monday nights were homework battles. "Dad, you're burning the pancakes," Mila observed from her seat at the table, not looking up from her book about constellations. Julian flipped them quickly. "They're golden brown. They're golden black." Nia laughed from where she was packing lunches. "She's not wrong." "Traitor," Julian muttered, but he was smiling. This, the teasing, the routine, the comfortable rhythm of breakfast before school, was everything he'd never known he wanted. He'd started consulting work from home, flexible hours that let him do school pickup and help with homework. The pay was a fraction of what he'd made at Apex, but he'd stopped measuring. Wealth in dollars somewhere around the 3rd bedtime story. "What shape today?" he asked Mila. "Hearts, because it's almost Valentine's Day." He pulled out the heart-shaped mold, pouring batter with care. When he presented her plate, Mila examined it critically. "Perfect," she declared. "Can we make Valentines for my class tonight?" "Absolutely. We'll make the best Valentines in kindergarten." After breakfast, the usual routine, backpack check, teeth brushing, hair braiding. At the door, Mila hugged them both, Nia first, then Julian, a ritual she'd established on her own. "Love you to the moon," she told Nia. "And back," Nia replied. "Love you to the stars," she told Julian. "And beyond," he answered. At school pickup that afternoon, no photographers waited. No cameras, no questions, no invasion. The media had moved on months ago, finding newer scandals to dissect. What remained was just life, ordinary, precious, real. "How was school?" Julian asked, as Mila climbed into the car. "Good. We learned about community helpers. I told everyone my mama is a nurse and helps people get better, and that my dad helps businesses, but now he mostly helps me with homework." Julian caught Nia's eye in the rearview mirror. She was smiling, that soft smile that appeared more often now, the wall she'd built finally coming down brick by brick. That evening, they worked on Valentines at the kitchen table, construction paper and glitter everywhere. Mila's tongue poking out in concentration as she wrote each classmate's name in careful letters. "This one is for my teacher," she announced. "She's nice. She lets me read chapter books during quiet time." "Because you're advanced," Nia said proudly. "Because I'm smart like Dad and brave like you," Mila corrected matter-of-factly. Later, after Mila was asleep, Julian and Nia reviewed what they'd learned in 6 months of rebuilding. "We should write this down," Nia said. "For her, when she's older, so she understands what we learned." They made a list on the back of a ruined valentine. "Teach your children how to ask for help." Mila's bravery had saved them all, but only because Nia had prepared her. "Share the truth as early as they can handle it. Age-appropriate honesty builds trust. Love the boring parts. They're where real life happens." The pancake mornings mattered more than grand gestures. Protect children's privacy fiercely. Not every moment needs an audience or documentation. Apology and forgiveness aren't one-time events. They're daily practices, woven into ordinary interactions. Presence matters more than presence. Time and attention are the currencies that count. Caregivers need care too. Nia had learned to accept help, to rest, to let Julian carry some weight. Community shows up when you let them. Neighbors, teachers, friends had supported them when they stopped trying to do everything alone. Don't let fear write your story. The future Nia had been afraid of turned out better than the safety she tried to maintain. "You know what people should actually do?" Julian said, looking at their list. "Concrete things, not just philosophy." "Like what?" "Tonight, right now, teach your child their full address and phone number. Make sure they know how to call for help." It's basic, but Mila knowing those things saved Nia's life. "And pick one boundary," Nia added. "Just one thing that protects your family's peace. Maybe it's no photos of your kids online, or screen-free dinners, or dedicated family time on weekends. Whatever creates sacred space." They sat quietly, thinking about how small choices compound into transformed lives. The apartment that had started as temporary housing had become home. They'd signed a lease extension, begun talking about finding a house with a yard where Mila could play. Julian's things were no longer in a guest room. They'd reorganized, blended, their lives in practical ways that spoke louder than any declaration. "We're doing okay, aren't we?" Nia asked one night. "Better than okay. We're building something real. It's slower than I expected." Good things usually are. The call at 3 a.m. had set everything in motion, but it was the 1,000 small choices after that built their forever. Every breakfast, every homework session, every bedtime story, every moment of choosing presence over convenience. The bluebonnets were in full bloom when they returned to the field where they'd taken their first family photo. Mila was 6 now, reading chapter books, asking questions about the universe that Julian had to research to answer. "Same spot?" Nia asked. "Same spot," Julian confirmed. They positioned themselves under the oak tree, Mila between them, all 3 holding hands this time. A family built from broken pieces, glued together with courage and choice. "Say, second chances," Mila called out. "Second chances." They echoed as the camera timer clicked. The photo was perfect not because of technical quality, but because it captured their truth. Mila's gap, toothed smile, now missing 2 teeth. Nia's relaxed happiness, no longer shadowed by fear. Julian's complete presence, no longer divided between worlds. If this story moved you, here's what I want you to know. Second chances are real, but they require courage from everyone involved. The courage to call for help, the courage to answer, the courage to stay when it's boring, hard, or complicated. Subscribe to Mr. Steele Rich Stories and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. We're telling stories about real people facing impossible choices and finding their way through. Drop your biggest takeaway in the comments. What resonated with you? What will you do differently after hearing Julian, Nia, and Mila's story? Share this with someone who needs a reminder that it's never too late to answer the call, rebuild the bridge, or start again. First, teach your child their full address and 1 emergency contact number. Practice what to say if they ever need help. These simple preparations could save a life. Second, Pick one boundary to protect your family's sacred space this week. Maybe it's no phones at dinner. Maybe it's one evening without screens. Maybe it's protecting your children's images online. Start small, but start. These choices matter more than you know. Julian answered a 3 a.m. call from a child he didn't know existed. That choice changed 3 lives forever. Nia taught her daughter to ask for help when she needed it most. That preparation saved them all. Mila was brave enough to reach out to a stranger because her mother promised he would come. They were all right. The question isn't whether second chances exist. They do. The question is whether you'll be brave enough to reach out, present enough to answer, and patient enough to build something real from the wreckage of what was. Sometimes the most important call you'll ever receive comes at 3 a.m. from someone you've never met. Sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is teach someone to ask for help. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give is simply answering when it matters most. Julian, Nia, and Mila found their way back to each other through 1,000 tiny choices that added up to transformation. Their story isn't about perfect timing or ideal circumstances. It's about showing up, staying present, and choosing each other even when the world offers 1,000 reasons not to. What call are you waiting to make? What call are you waiting to answer? What preparation could you do today that might change everything tomorrow? The phone is ringing. Someone needs help. Someone is being brave enough to ask. Will you be brave enough to answer?